Hello and welcome to Cultural Anthropology online course. We're going to start with Chapter 1 today, and we're dealing with learning about what anthropology is all about. So you're taking a course in Cultural Anthropology. Chapter 1 kind of introduces us to anthropology as a whole, talks about some of the subdisciplines of anthropology, and one of which is cultural anthropology, which will be the focus of this course. You can see here through the bullet points on the PowerPoint here, we're going to go through the scope of anthropology, its holistic approach to studying humans, the anthropological curiosity, or just kind of this general questioning of humans and how we got here and why we behave the way we do, those sorts of things. Again, the subfields of anthropology, specializations within anthropology, and the relevance of it. So why even, why are we talking about it? Why are you taking this course? Those sorts of things. Okay, so the scope of anthropology. So anthropology is a discipline of infinite curiosity about human beings. So we're, as anthropologists, we're interested in all things human. So all things dealing with human beings. So anything from human evolution, human biological variation, the way we talk, the things that we've left behind in the past up until the present. And so in all places and all times, all aspects of humans. So it's broader in scope than other disciplines. So you might think, in sociology, they study humans, or psychology, they study humans. Well, anthropology includes those sociological aspects and psychological aspects and political aspects, but it's broad. Anthropologists want to know everything there is to know about human beings. So every part of the world containing human populations is of interest to anthropological study or anthropologists. So again, it's all humans, all places, all times, everything there is to know about humans. So every little nook and cranny of the world that has humans or ever has had humans is of interest to anthropologists. So you could say that anthropology takes a holistic approach to studying humans, which kind of sets it apart from other academic disciplines like the ones I mentioned earlier. So it's a multifaceted approach to the study of human beings. So again, all times, all places, all aspects of humans. Very broad and multifaceted approach to studying humans. So anthropologists, again, there's all sorts of individual behaviors that have existed today and in the past from humans. But anthropologists are generally focused on typical characteristics of a population, such as traits or customs, particularly cultural anthropologists. Just kind of these common things. What do humans commonly do or typically do? What do these group of humans typically do that's different or the same from these groups of humans? That sort of thing. So how does one explain the differing characteristics of human groups? We break anthropology up into different fields. So one field of anthropology, so this is anthropology as a whole now, one field or aspect of anthropology is biological anthropology, or sometimes called physical anthropology, dealing with the physical aspects of humans, the biological aspects, us as biological beings. So include things like human evolution, and also just contemporary variations in our physical makeup. Cultural anthropology, which is the focus of this course, deals with the cultural aspects of humans, or shared and learned behavior that we have, and that's what we'll focus on. And then there's applied or practicing anthropology. These are people who are anthropologists, and they come from any of these different backgrounds, and they're applying their particular knowledge to address some sort of aspect or problem that may be going on today with a group of humans. So this diagram from the book sort of breaks down. Up here we've got the cultural side, and then down here the biological side. So in other words, you could further break down cultural anthropology into archaeology, anthropological, linguistics, and ethnology. And then you can further break down each of these. So I don't want you to get too bogged down in what the kind of the structure or the hierarchy of it, but I do want you to know what does an archaeologist do, what does a biological anthropologist do, what does an anthropological linguist do, those sorts of things. So be able to know how each one contributes to the overall picture of anthropology. So we'll talk about each of these here a little bit, just kind of introduce them. Biological anthropology is, or again, sometimes called physical anthropology. We're dealing with human paleontology. So when you hear the word paleontology, I want you to think of fossils. And so human fossils. So again, anthropologists are only interested in humans. So they're not interested in fossils that occurred before humans were on Earth. So dinosaurs, not of interest to anthropologists. That would be of interest to just a paleontologist. But human paleontology is when you're dealing with human fossils. So we're talking about early records of humans, human evolution, and then just contemporary human variation. And when we say that in this case, we're talking about physical variation. So why is our skin color different? Why is the shapes of our noses, those sorts of things, or our physiological makeup? That would be of interest to a biological anthropologist. So cultural anthropology, and then again we can break that down further, and we're going to be focusing more on ethnology or the cultural differences of contemporary cultures. So you might just say, what is culture? So again, anthropologists are interested in those typical or general characteristics of humans, and so culture refers to the customary or the typical ways that a particular population or society thinks and behaves. So it has to be a group of people on board with the same ideas of this is how we think and this is how we behave, generally speaking. So that's what culture is all about. And then we can break cultural anthropology up again into archaeology, linguistics, and ethnology. So archaeology is where my background is in. And so you've probably heard of archaeology before. If anything, you've heard of Indiana Jones, which is absolutely nothing like what most archaeologists do. But you'll get chased down tunnels with these big ball chasing you down there, anything like that. So archaeologists try to reconstruct history from the remains of human cultures. So we're looking at the stuff that humans have left behind and trying to determine culture from that. So that's why it's within cultural anthropology. So it's studying humans of the past, the things they've left behind, and trying to determine their culture, which is those typical behaviors and thoughts that occurred amongst those people. So there you can break archaeology down into prehistoric archaeology and historic archaeology. And prehistoric deals with anything before written records. So a prehistoric archaeologist cannot consult the writings of the people in which they're studying, whereas a historic archaeologist can. So it's happened during a historical period where there are historical documents that might tell you what this particular object was that you found. Okay, so anthropological linguistics then would be the third the second within cultural anthropology. And again, I don't want you to get bogged down into the hierarchy of it, but more what does an anthropological linguist do? So, they do three things, or there's kind of three areas of study within anthropological linguistics. There's historical linguistics, which looks at the history of languages, and we'll get back into this a little bit more in Chapter 5. So looking at the history of languages, the origins of language, how they branched off and changed over time, those sorts of things. There's descriptive or structural linguistics, where you're looking at the actual makeup of the language. So you might, if you're an English major and you're into pronouns and verb, subject, all that stuff, then you are essentially a structural linguist studying the English language. And then sociolinguistics, which is how our language changes based on social context. So, for example, at church you might speak one way, and when you're hanging out with your friends, watching a movie or at the bar or whatever, you might speak in a different way. So it's how language changes based on social context. So the field that we're going to be studying is cultural anthropology, also called ethnology, and it's concerned with patterns of thought and behavior amongst groups of people. So again, that word culture, these kind of typical, customary ways of behaving and thinking. So different types of ethnologists. There's an ethnographer, which goes out, actually lives with a group of people for a certain amount of time, and then writes an account of what they learned. There's an ethnohistorian, which looks at the historical records. Ethnographers are the first one. Ethnographers, that when they're living with these people, they're studying them now. There's probably some historical context in there that they'll include, but ethnohistorians are looking at a group of people over a historical period and then gleaming information about their culture from that. And then cross-cultural researchers are those who don't look at one culture, but they're looking at cross-cultural behavior. They're looking at things that different groups or cultures tend to do the same and different. Okay, and then kind of the all-encompassing one is the applied or practicing anthropologist. So about half of all professional anthropologists are applied or practicing anthropologists. And what this means is they can come from any of these different backgrounds that I'm talking about, such as archaeology, biological anthropology, cultural anthropology, and they're applying their knowledge in a way that is going to lend itself to some kind of social problem amongst a group of people. A lot of times, if you were to go on and get a master's and a PhD in anthropology, you will tend to specialize in one particular area. And so here are some examples of different specializations within cultural anthropology. You might be, an economic anthropologist or a political anthropologist, a psychological anthropologist. So, medical anthropologists, you're focusing on medical issues, dealing with a group of people. So either from a cultural standpoint, usually from a cultural and or medical or physical or biological aspect. So I hope you can see the relevance of anthropology is why it's needed, because it brings together all these disciplines of that are dealing with humans, and it gives it, again, a broader scope, a holistic approach, multifaceted. Again, all humans, all places, all times, everything there is to know about humans, anthropologists are interested in. And, basically, why are we the way we are, both culturally and physically. So that was kind of a quick rundown of Chapter 1. I hope you learned a little bit more from me talking about it than just reading the book. And of course, you can email with questions that you might have. Thanks.